Hello everybody! So how are you doing? First of all, can you please put your pluses to let me know that you can hear and see me well? So first of all, put your pluses to let me know that I'm in contact with you so you can hear and see me well. And then answer the question, how are you doing? Well, I can see no pluses here, but still I hope that you can hear and see me well. And so let's then begin the topic. Today we are going to talk about how to write a good composition in an exam. So during your examination, you can have any kind of composition. It can be an invitation, an informal letter, formal letter, article, for and against essay, or opinion essay. So any kind of composition can be in your examination. So today we'll first look at the general tips how to write a good composition. And after these general tips, we'll discuss how to write an article. So first of all, talking about general tips. Perhaps you know some tips, some general rules how to write an effective article so that you can have like this great mark, so you can have the highest mark during your examination. So the first and foremost, the first thing that you have to know is that you have to read the rubric carefully. Like it doesn't matter what you have. If you have an invitation, if you have an informal or formal letter or any kind of composition, you have to read the rubric carefully. So the rubric will state what kind of text you're supposed to write and may specify the points which you have to include in your composition. Depending on the exam task, the rubric may also give you the title, the first or the last sentence, or a word limit. So let's look at a sample exam task. So here you can see a sample exam task, and it is stated that you're going to write a letter to your friend. So you're planning to go to the cinema with your English friend Mark this weekend. He has sent you links to information about 3 films and would like to know which one you would like to see. And here you can see is that you have a choice of some films: Fake Evidence, Accidental Love, or Repentance. And it is stated here after each film what it is about. So your task here is to write an email of 120 or 180 words to Mark. So you can see here the word limit, like you have to write an email with this word limit. And you have to include the following information. Say which film you would like to see and explain your choice. Ask when it is on. Suggest a place where you can meet. And one of the most interesting tasks that you have here is that you have to begin your letter with high mark. So the instruction required you to write an email to a friend. And that means that you have to use informal letter. So all kinds of letters to a friend are supposed to be written in informal language. You know that English language has both languages, both types of language, like informal or formal. And when you write an email to a friend, you have to use informal language. There are also 3 points that you have to include, listed as bullet points. There is a word limit you must not exceed, and an opening you have to use. You remember that, like high mark. You may underline all those elements in the exam task and check if you have included each of them after you finish writing. So the second point that you have to follow is, if you have a choice of topics, choose one which will give you the best chance of success. The following questions will help you. So you have to ask yourself, do I know what I would like to write on this topic? Do I know the formal features of this type of text? It doesn't matter if you have an essay, description, invitation, article, so on. Do I know enough vocabulary associated with the topic? Also, you have to think about the content of the composition. Read the rubric carefully one more time to make sure you have not overlooked any key points. You can note down various ideas and then choose the best one. Also, it is good for you to make a plan of your composition. So have a look at the ideas you have noted down. Choose the one that best suits your purpose. Think about how they are connected. Number them in the order in which you want to put them in your text. Decide how many paragraphs there will be. So also pay attention that while writing anything like invitation, description, article, you have to have some kind of paragraphs. Like it can be 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, but mostly you have 4 paragraphs. So you're supposed to have 4 paragraphs in almost all kinds of your composition. Also decide what you are going to write in the introduction and in the conclusion. So later we will have this sample text, sample article, in which you will see how it is constructed and how it has this introduction, like the main body and the conclusion. So later you will see that. Think about what style is appropriate for the text you're going to write. So again, like if you talk about invitation, if you talk about an email to a friend, so they are written in informal style. And like while you write an informal letter or anything informal, you can use contractions like I'd, we've, and so on. But while you write formal letter, you have to use all those formal features. Like there can be no contraction, like we have got. But in formal letter, you can say we've got. And so on, like all these contractions. Also, mind your vocabulary. When you write an informal letter, you can use all those informal phrases and words and phrasal verbs and idioms. But while you write formal letter, mostly you're not supposed to use phrasal verbs, idioms, so on. Also, it is good for you to note down or recall some sophisticated words or phrases appropriate to the subject and the type of text. For example, if you write anything connected to environment, it's good for you to try to remind yourself of some sophisticated words that connect to environment. Write a rough draft of your text. Try to vary your vocabulary and the structures. And one more important thing is that you have to count the words in your draft. So if you're supposed to write 120 words in your composition, so mind that and count the words, because sometimes your mark can be lower just because you have too long composition or too short. So if it is a bit too long, look for words you can delete, uninteresting adjectives, for example. If it is much too long, you will need to delete whole sentences, but mind and be careful not to delete content required by the exam task. If the text is too short, think about which idea you can develop further. After you've written all introduction, main body, and conclusion, then read your whole text carefully. Check that you have the division into paragraphs, and these paragraphs are logical, and they are of similar length. Correct any grammar, spelling, or punctuation mistakes. If you spot any repetition, try to replace the repeated words with a synonym. So mostly you may have this repetition of adjectives, so try to vary adjectives. Try to memorize one adjective and the synonyms to it, so that you can replace one adjective with another and so on, and your text will be much better by having all those adjectives in it. Write the final version of your composition. Write legibly. Remember that the division between paragraphs might be visible and always marked in the same way. Space or indentation, or space and indentation, but not a mix of style. But mostly when you write any kind of composition, it is stated about what you should have, or a space or indentation. While working on the rough draft, keep an eye on the time. If you realize you have too little time to complete it and then rewrite it, move on to the final version, so that you do not end up handing in an unfinished text. So that's why the things that you have to remember is that you should first of all identify the style that you should write a text in, like is it formal or informal. Then you have to divide your text into paragraphs. So the first paragraph should be introduction. The second paragraph, mostly it is divided into two paragraphs, and it is called main body. And the fourth or the third paragraph, that is conclusion. So note down that you also have to know the sophisticated words or phrases that are used in the composition that you write. So depending, is it like invitation, environmental problems, like article about that, or maybe something different. So now let's move on to a more practical thing, and let's look at the articles we have here. So these are paragraphs from an article. So you can see here A, B, C, D, E, or F. So your task now is to read these extracts and identify which of them outline a problem, describe what will happen if nothing is done, or suggest what to do. I will give you 5 minutes, or maybe a little bit less, to complete this task. So please be active, read all those extracts you have here, and match them with the questions. Well, while you are thinking, while you are reading these extracts and trying to match that, I'll help you and read also some of them for you. So A, extract A. These attractive birds live near rivers. They eat frogs and other small animals. The species is endangered because the birds cannot find enough food anymore. Cities are getting bigger and bigger, and humans destroy their natural habitat. B. If we don't stop pollution, the temperature will rise further. If the earth gets hotter, and it will have dramatic consequences, if we don't act now, it might be too late. C. First, we must introduce new laws to stop deforestation. The laws should say that big companies that have earned millions from producing paper have to invest some of their money to save the rainforests. D. Some people believe that having a wild animal in a cage at home is something special. This is why every year thousands of exotic animals die on their way to other countries and continents. E. First, we need to make sure that there are enough trains and buses so that people can travel to work on public transport. Then we need to let people know what will happen if everybody uses their car all the time. And the last one, E, we need to do something now. If the level of the ocean keeps rising, many small islands will be flooded. People and animals will die. This will all happen for sure unless we all change things now. Well, I can see one person is already ready, so Daddy is ready. Perhaps some of you also ready, so let's check the exercise. So the extract A and D, they both outline a problem. So well done, Yana and Daria, that's right. So extracts B and F, they describe what will happen if nothing is done. So B and F. Well, that is correct. Yana, you're almost correct with B. Let's see what we have here. Describe what will happen if nothing is done. So, well, B, that's quite clear. What about F? Well, even in the question, you have this conditional tense, describe what will happen if nothing is done. So you have this conditional, right? And in both of these extracts, B and F, you have these conditional sentences. If we don't stop pollution, the temperature will rise further. And in F, you have the same, if the level of the ocean keeps rising, many small islands will be flooded. So you have here the conditional sentences, and it may give you a tip that it is the second question, describe what will happen if nothing is done. And the last one, the third one, suggests what to do, that's C and E. We need to do something now, it's quite clear. And looking at C, first we must introduce new laws to stop deforestation. So here you can see the suggestions, what is gonna be here. Well done. So let's move on. And here you have to complete the sentences with the linking words. So all of these sentences are taken from the extracts I've just read. So perhaps you can't remember anything from the text, or maybe you just know the answer to these gaps, how it can be completed, so what should be put here. So think about these linking words that link these two parts of the sentence into one sentence. So, well, we will do it sentence by sentence. So first, the first sentence, I'm gonna read that, and your task is to write that in a chat, what do you think should be appropriate here. So the species is endangered. They cannot find enough food anymore. So what do you think? What could be put here? What linking what? Ksenia says because, well, let's see. That is right, yes. The species is endangered because they cannot find enough food anymore. So what about the second one? Some people believe that having a wild animal in a cage at home is something special. Then here you have this dot. So after this linking word, you put comma, you can see that. So every year, thousands of exotic animals die on their way to other countries and continents. So what do you think could be put here? What linking what? Well, Ksenia says because of that. Well, we'll see. The earth, oh no, Dasha, that's not right. The earth is this noun, it's what you're talking about. But we are talking here about linking words. Linking words, they link two parts of the sentence into one sentence, right? So linking words could be first and foremost, because, secondly, firstly, finally, to sum up, so that, unless, if, and so on. So we have two answers here, because of that, and that's why. And so let's see. This is why. So Ksenia was almost right, yes. So this is why every year thousands of exotic animals die on their way to other countries and continents. Pay attention that after this linking word you have comma. So this is why, comma, every year thousands of exotic animals die on their way to other countries and continents. So what about the third? This will all happen for sure. We all change things now. So Ksenia says unless. This will all happen for sure unless we all change things now. Okay, let's see. And that is right. So this will all happen for sure unless we all change things now. Good. So what about the fourth, the next one? We need to make sure that there are enough trains and buses that people can travel to work. Pay attention that here you have this word that. And you have this tip that that is used with another word. Like the linking word is made of these two words. That people can travel to work. So that is right, yes. I'm sorry about the presentation. Something happened with that. So we need to make sure that there are enough trains and buses so that people can travel to work. That is right. And what about the last one? We need to let people know what will happen. Everybody uses their car all the time. We need to let people know what will happen. So if, let's see. That is right, if. We need to let people know what will happen if everybody uses their car all the time. That's right. Firstly, I'm sorry about the presentation, it's something happened with that. And so here, let's pay attention to the linking words that are used in all of these sentences. You know, while you write any kind of composition, it's quite good for you to use linking words. And even you have this section in creating your in marking your composition, and in this section it's just written like linking words, and you have your pluses or minuses with the linking words that you have. So try to use such as first and foremost, firstly, what's more, because, this is why, unless, so that, if. To sum up, secondly, not only that, but. So try to use all those linking words in your composition. It doesn't matter what you write. You can write formal letter, you can write informal letter. Any kind of composition should be used with linking words. So pay attention and try to find linking words and write them down on the stickers for you to know, to memorize them, and to use in your composition later. It's written if, not it, but if. So let's move on to another task, and here you have the phrases, the list of phrases, and your task now is to read these phrases and to identify which question do they fit. So a description of a problem, talking about consequences, a suggested action. So here you have these phrases, and while you think and match them with the questions, let me read them for you. So the first one, if we don't stop now, there will be. Unless people begin to change their behavior, it might be too late. In 5 years' time, most of the animals will. 4. Then we have 2. 5. 40% of the species in that area are in danger. 6. The air in big cities is terribly polluted. 7. We must introduce new laws to stop. 8. Every year we lose. 9. First we need to. 10. The species is endangered because. And 11. We must have bigger problems soon. So now you have to match these phrases, this list, with the questions, a description of a problem, talking about consequences, a suggested action. And also pay attention that in all of these phrases, in all of these sentences, you have linking words. Like if, unless, in 5 years' time, and so on. So which phrases do you think describe a problem? So pay attention to the conditional sentences that you have. If you have conditional sentences, mostly they give you a tip where it is used. So, well, let's see, description of a problem, what we have here. So, the fifth sentence, 40% of the species in that area are in danger. So that phrase, that sentence describe a problem, right? So species are in danger. 6. The air in big cities is terribly polluted. So again, we have the description of a problem. So we have air, we have information that it is polluted. So that is describing a problem. 8. Every year we lose. So again, we have this description. So every year something is lost, right? And the last one, 10. The species is endangered because. So again, we're describing a problem and we just state it. What about the second one, talking about consequences? Well, talking about consequences, we have the first sentence, the first phrase, if we don't stop now, there will be. So you may see that while we talk about consequences, we can use these conditional sentences. If we don't stop now, there will be something, right? So we talk about consequences. The second, unless people begin to change their behavior, it might be too late. So again, you have this conditional sentence. So you have unless. So that is the same as if, right? But in a negative connotation. So unless, and this conditional sentence. The third one, in 5 years' time, most of the animals will be. So again, we talk about consequences. And the last one, 11, we might have bigger problems soon. So again, consequences are stated here. Well done. And what about the last one? C, a suggested action. Well, when we suggest an action, we can use such linking words as then we have to, right? So then we have to do something, right? So we suggest an action. Also, we can use such phrases, we must introduce new laws to stop. We must introduce something, right? So we suggest an action by saying this phrase, we must introduce something. And 9, first we need to. So while we are suggesting an action, any kind of action, we can use such phrases as first we need to. You know, these are not just phrases like taken from the air, but these phrases could be used in your composition. When you write any kind of formal letter, formal article or essay, you may use such linking words and such phrases in your composition. So here we will also look at a sample article. And we'll read this article and we'll try to analyze it. But firstly, while I'm reading this article, I would like you to participate a little bit, and I would like you to write in a chat the structure of any kind of a letter, formal, informal, it doesn't matter, maybe of an article, of any kind of composition. So please write the structure of any kind of composition in the chat. Like how would you write anything? A letter, an email, anything. So while I'm reading this article, you have to write it down in the chat. So towards a slimmer society. Ofcom, the organisation that regulates the media in the UK, has announced its decision to ban the advertising of foods high in fat, salt and sugar from children's television in an effort to reduce child obesity. Clearly, there is a problem. We see more and more overweight, unhealthy-looking children around us. And if you are not sure what is causing the obesity epidemic, count the number of children you pass in the streets who are munching on crisps or chocolate bars. Or look into the nearest hamburger place on a Saturday and see how many families are having lunch there. Advertising is at least partly to blame, as it tempts children to consume snacks whether they are hungry or not. But should it be banned? Advertisers don't think so. They cite freedom of speech and say children must be educated about healthy eating instead. But freedom of speech may be restricted in the public interest. And the impact of education is weakened when it is constantly undermined by advertising campaigns with budgets far greater than that of any government-funded educational project. Other steps can be taken to reduce child obesity. In supermarkets, sweets should not be displayed by the checkout at a child's eye level. Healthier meals should be on offer in schools. And perhaps most importantly, children should have more opportunities to do sports. But this advertising ban is a sensible move, which other countries might consider imitating. Let's hope it helps us bring up slimmer, healthier future generations. Well, here we read that article. And firstly, before discussing it and before analyzing it, let me see what you've written here. So Ksenia and Yana wrote that first of all, we write an introduction, and that is right, of course. So firstly, we have introduction or beginning, in other words, okay. Then we have main part or 3 paragraphs. Well, you are right, Yana. There may be 3 paragraphs, but it's not necessarily. So mostly you're supposed to write 2 paragraphs, like in general 2 paragraphs. Also pay attention on the type of composition that you have. If you're supposed to write an article, you may have these 3 paragraphs like we have here. Like the first paragraph starts with clearly there is a problem. The second paragraph, advertising is at least partly to blame. And the third paragraph, other steps can be taken. So here you can see these 3 paragraphs. But mostly it depends on the type of composition you have. If you have to write an email to a friend, for example, an informal email, you may write just 2 paragraphs. Or even you can write 1 paragraph if it is like quite big and if it has a lot of information in it that is logically connected. But talking about these paragraphs, if you want to write only 1 paragraph, it should be logically connected. But it is mostly advised to write at least 2 paragraphs. And to link that with the linking words, like the first paragraph you may start firstly and talk about 1 idea. 1 paragraph should contain only 1 idea. And the second paragraph may start with secondly. And you continue the second idea. So 2 paragraphs, 2 ideas, 3 paragraphs, 3 ideas, and so on. And the last one, that is conclusion, that is right. So if you write an article, so you have this formal structure: introduction, main body, and conclusion. If you write an informal email, you again have this greeting like "Hi Mark," as we had previously, right? So "Hi Mark," and then you answer firstly the questions that may be stated in the rubric, like it may be stated like "How are you doing?" and you answer "I'm doing well, I'm fine. I have been on a vacation." So that may be only one paragraph. And then you continue this email with the second paragraph, asking about that person or answering his questions. Like talking about a film you like, talking about a book you read, so on. And in a letter, you do not have this conclusion, but you have this final feature. Like first they say, "Looking forward to hearing from you," that is mostly formal letter, and informal "Best wishes," or "Hope to see you soon," and then your name. And by looking here at this article, let's also see at the phrase that you have here. So introduction. Ofcom, the organization that regulates the media in the UK, has announced its decision. So here you refer to the information from the input using your own words. So in other words, you write the same as stated in rubric, right? So you have the rubric, and you state it with your own words. After this stating, you may ask a question. It is allowed for you to ask a question and to continue your paragraphs to move to the main body. You may also use examples from your own life, or from life of your friends and so on. Just the everyday life. So any kind of examples could be used in your article or in your letters. You can state the problem in the form of a question. It is allowed. You may ask different kind of questions and then answer them in the same letter or in the same article. You may also suggest possible solution. If you write for and against essay, opinion essay, or an article, you may suggest possible solutions, how to solve any kind of problem. The same may be used in informal letters. If you write a letter to a friend, you may also suggest some solutions to his or her problems that are stated in the rubric. And in the conclusion, most importantly, you return to the idea from the introduction. So you restate the opinion referring to the future. So you may use the same idea as you've written in the introduction, but in different words. And just remember that one paragraph should have only one idea. So develop each point in one paragraph. So firstly, and you describe something, right? Secondly, and you describe anything. Thirdly, what's more, not only that, but, and so on. So you have to use all those linking words to have the effective composition. So mostly that is about writing an article. And do you have any questions? So now you can ask any kind of questions concerning how to write an article or how to write any kind of composition. Or maybe you have questions to the general tips. So if you have any kind of questions, just ask them now. Well, I hope that most of these points that I mentioned you quite realize, and you remember that you have to use this definite structure like introduction, main body, and conclusion. That's most importantly about all kind of composition you can write. You can write anywhere. So in an exam or in different life situations. So the same structure is used everywhere, not only during examination. I don't have any questions. Okay, good. So then we moved to the ending of our presentation of our lesson today, and let me switch to Ukrainian. Тож дякую вам за активну участь, особливо тим студентам, тим учням, які справді активно приймали участь у всіх заданнях, які у нас були до цього. І ми сьогодні поговорили, як написати статтю. Звичайно, це основні правила, те, як писати будь-який вид твору. І сьогодні ми говорили саме, як написати статтю, але далі я запрошую вас на свій онлайн-курс, на курс інтенсив з англійської мови ЗНО-2021 Writing, де ми будемо говорити, як написати informal letter, formal letter, opinion essay and for and against essay. Починаємо ми 20 лютого о 14 годині. І розклад буде таким, що щосуботи о 14 годині ми проводимо кожну суботу уроки. Курс інтенсив буде кожної суботи. Тож, зараз ви на екрані можете бачити вартість. І якщо у вас є будь-які запитання, ви можете зараз запитувати в чаті. Ще хотіла додати, що до цього курсу передбачено, що буде 2 домашні завдання, тобто 2 рази ви будете виконувати завдання написання власного висловлювання. Тобто там буде formal letter, вам потрібно буде написати саме formal letter, я буду його перевіряти і свій відгук вам відсилати і повністю оцінювати за критеріями ЗНО. І так само буде formal and informal. Letter to a friend, and formal letter, it can be any kind of formal letter, like letter of application, letter of complaining, and so on. Тож, так як запитань немає, дякую ще раз вам за участь. Thank you very much for your participation and see you during our lessons. Тож побачимося на заняттях. Goodbye.